Hello, everybody. This is Dissonant Waves. What is this, episode 14 or something?
I believe it's episode 14 because I just did the artwork for last week's episode. I believe that was episode 13.
Yeah, I had that thing in my mind, and I was like, I think that's 13. This is 14. How's everyone doing? I'm Dominic.
I'm
Riddleman's
Riddleman.
here.
Trix is somewhere. I don't know where they've gone.
Maybe they'll show up in the middle of the episode. Who knows? But for now, we're going to press ahead with our last 2019 albums of the year.
This is the fuck Trix episode unless they come back, in which case it's the we love Trix episode. This is the bipolar episode.
The last week, I feel a little bit bad since I had to duck out at the last minute because I somehow landed an acting gig, and I'm not an actor, but that's a story for another time, I guess.
And that's why we spent
Uh,
the first 5 minutes of the last week episode bagging on you for leaving us behind.
I haven't listened to it yet, so maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. Who knows?
Yeah, nah. We love you, don't
Everyone
we?
he- everyone here is a well-known liar, including myself. Anyway, we have three albums to talk about today, all 2019. We have King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards, Infest the Rat's Nest. We have Ross by Low Roar, and we have Mac DeMarco's Kill the Cowboy. No, Here Comes the
Here
Cowboy.
comes the cowboy. Yeah, you're thinking of the Petite League with the Hang the Cowboy.
Yes, because that's all I can think about
Because that's
whenever
because
this
that's the
album.
reason why Trix picked it was the song Hang the Cowboy, which I believe was actually he was correct. He she sorry I keep getting that wrong. Was correct in their kind of thoughts of what that song was about. It was because there was a bunch of artists who had put out albums like Mac DeMarco and Mitski, which are the Be the Cowboy, Here Comes the Cowboy. And I think the description of Rattler is in the time of cowboy albums, be the rattlesnake.
I guess that's a way to go. Uh, I don't quite know what that means,
Me
but
neither,
sure.
actually. I think it's.
But,
I'm guessing it's because cowboys. I'm guessing they're thinking their areas where ranches are. There's rattlesnakes and like if a cowboy steps on you, that is like a stretch and a half. But
I mean, Petite League is like a nice cuddly bear, you know? There's no rattlesnake there. Lorenzo G. Cook looks like a nice person. I don't know.
anyway, let's go with the Ross album first because I think I had the most problems with that one out of any album this week.
Yeah, that's my pick. Low Roar's Ross. I played Death Stranding a lot recently.
Yeah.
I reviewed it and everything. And Low Ross is all over that soundtrack. So I thought, hey, why don't we do the new album that they released to coincide with Death Stranding? And you know, some of the songs are in there, and they sound pretty cool. I don't know, it really works with the game, but
It works with the game because I'm assuming I haven't played any Death Stranding. I know, what a shocker. I've been playing Pokemon Sword instead, and yeah, that might actually be a sin. But regardless, I'm assuming Death Stranding works better with an ambient type of soundtrack because the game
yes,
looks
it does.
it looks kind of haunting, and ambience is works with haunting.
You're climbing over mountains and crossing rivers with giant packages on your back, and it's just nice to have like this really ambient kind of minimalist song come over when you're like crossing the mountain range and there's fog and you can see your destination in the distance. It really works well, you know.
But when you hear the soundtrack to that, you're not focusing on the soundtrack. The soundtrack is there in the background, and it helps kind of create the atmosphere. That's the whole
It
point of
all
picking.
comes together
It
to
all
create
comes
an
together,
ambience.
and it works well. And I'm not doubting that it works perfectly with with Death Stranding. But as this album, listening to this album in full, it's not that he. I'm assuming it's just one guy looking at a bit of the. I haven't done too much research.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ryan Krazia or something like that.
he doesn't write these songs that make me want to blow my brains out with how bad they are or anything. That's not the why I hate this. But the reason I do hate this is that it wears all its influences on its sleeve, but it doesn't do anything with them. It kind of starts to feel like he has grabbed he's grabbed the parts that you kind of just recognize from a lot of these
Yeah,
influences
yeah.
and hasn't got what's made it great.
We could
So
talk about how like I talk about how Here Comes the Cowboy reminds me of Petite League, and that's kind of a cute haha
Yeah.
joke, right? But
But
then it's like, okay, Ross reminds me of the Middle East, but like for real.
yeah.
Like
But it does not have what makes the Middle East good. I mean, Middle East has that really haunting vibe in a lot of its songs, and it works so well the way that they do it. And it's a bit hard for me to fully describe because, again, I'm shit at describing things. But this Ross album has so much potential that I feel like it just does not fucking use. And I
I,
know the reason why I feel like it doesn't use it is because I've seen other artists use it much more
it's like
beautifully.
this is an album in the same space as like a Fleet Foxes,
Mm.
or like in some ways like the XX even of like very stripped down, sometimes poppy, sometimes folky, kind of just like that style of song that
Big
makes you think of like winter and death and darkness,
big
but
albums
also like happy times.
that I got the biggest vibes of that I feel like it was influences. Even if it's not, he might not have known of any of these, but even so, these are all artists that have just done all these sounds so much better. You got Middle East recordings of Middle East in there. You've got Half Moon Run's Dark Eyes in there. You got Local Natives Hummingbird in there. All of those ones that I could just kind of go like, this sounds like a bit of a rip off of that. All of those albums did this sound so much better. And the Low Roar album feels like it's trying to go for this really haunting kind of sound, but it doesn't get it. Nothing about it really feels too haunting. It kind of just feels chill and there. And it's not that that's a bad thing, but it feels like it's more trying to go for that haunting style than it does for that chill style. Now, if I was playing it with Death Stranding in front of me, and I had a kind of different visual aid to what I'm getting, maybe it would become more haunting. But
Maybe.
I don't have that, so I'm just listening to this album with the context of the album, and that's it. And that is my biggest problem with this album, is that you just know that there's just so much that it does better out there. There's nothing that's making this sound like, oh, it's a bit of a mix in case you want to in between. It's like each song separately sounds like a rip off of each different artist, so it doesn't even have a mix. And it's like, say, if I wanted to listen to that song, why don't I just go listen to one of the other artists?
It's so disappointing in a way because I feel like two of the three choices, well, actually three of the four that I did were like very controversial in this group, and like I liked BTS their EP quite a bit, and I think Thelma Plum is fine. Like her album's good,
I
right?
mean, Film or Plum one, I think, was,
But
yeah, the one I've probably rated the highly out of your choices.
like between this and LSD, like
Oh,
I'm really disappointed in myself.
LSD is so much worse than this, do not worry.
No, it is, it is.
Yeah,
Like
no,
LSD was kind of the curiosity of like
this album doesn't get as bad as LSD does.
because it's inoffensive in a sense. Like
Yeah.
yeah, you can hear the influences, but like it's nothing that's like abrasive about it. It's kind of just there.
I
Which
mean,
is,
I probably admire more what LSD was going for, but I mean, LSD got it so wrong that it's just, yeah.
it's like I would like to talk about video game music. I like video game
I
music,
love
and
video
I
game
will
music's a great thing to talk about, actually. I mean, some of the best games have the best soundtracks, and I'm not just talking about like Tony Hawk or Guitar Hero soundtracks. I'm
yeah,
talking stuff
like
like what is it, Transistor, where I think that one was more kind of electronic, had a little bit
one,
of
yeah.
drum and bass sound into it as well, but was mostly this kind of electronic soundtrack. I think Bastion was the other game that they did as well, which had a great one. Undertale has probably one of the best chiptune soundtracks.
For sure. And
Yeah.
I was reading this week in an interview. Mac DeMarco was talking about his listening to Breath of the Wild soundtrack and
Mm.
Final Fantasy X. So you know, there's an audience for that. You know, people like game music, and it's worth talking about.
I do
And we'll
have
talk
my
about some later
yeah
for me.
I
But
have
like,
my top 10 of the year and stuff like that. I'm not gonna go spoil any of that until the end of this episode. But there are some artists that I have listened to their albums this year, which have been well known for having video game music. The one I was going to talk about was the Bit Trip series, which I think it was Bit Trip Runner actually had music from the band Anamanaguchi. Who I
So
don't,
yeah.
yeah, who they put out an album this year, by the way, which is fantastic. If people haven't listened to it, it's probably one of the best kind of. It is quite chiptune, but it is still quite mostly electronic. In
For
like
me,
the
like I have,
non-chiptune way, but
I, see, for me,
it,
I didn't really listen to a lot of albums this year, and I think this album, the Ross album, is like emblematic of kind of my experience of
mm,
there's like potential and there's really cool stuff happening, but it never is quite there. And the stuff that I like I made a list, we all did, I think. And
yeah.
so like looking at my list, it's like well, most of the stuff is stuff that's cool in some ways, but nothing I really super love.
I mean,
Like,
I will happily say I didn't listen to as much albums from this year in full as I would have liked to as well, and I still have like the largest list by far here. But when I do
yeah,
actually go into my list, probably around the 30 mark is when it starts to get albums that because I have given a shit ton of albums like only just one listen or one or two listens,
yeah, so have I.
and then the rest of those I've now actually started to give it much more listens. At the low Ross, whatever, I only gave like two listens to. I didn't really have much interest in going back into it again. I wasn't. It didn't really feel like I was missing much.
You heard of the Audrey sessions? That was like the previous band that they were involved with. They had like a hit or two like 10 years ago, I think.
I think I've heard the name, but fuck me
They
if you're
had like
gonna ask me
songs in
one of
like
their
The
songs.
Sims and stuff. Like so it seemed like they had something going on.
Actually,
Like
there's
like I
a
read it was like described as like musy and Oasis-y.
yeah, there's an artist in Australia, Morat, who recently redid one of their songs in the Simlish language.
It's always fun. The Sims
Yeah.
is like a weird phenomenon that people play and then people don't realize people play. That's a whole entire other topic. But yeah, I just I am like disappointed that this Ross album turned out the way that it did.
Let's just go.
Like it's not bad or anything, but like just
It's yeah. I mean, it is in a pretty forgettable as well. Like, I think uh, it's usually what Trix will say, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be echoing a lot of Trix's opinions as well, or Trix's would be echoing mine, I guess, because I'm going here first. Suck it. It blends together quite a lot. A
it's
lot of
exactly what I thought. It's exactly what I thought. I think I have that in my notes somewhere where I actually said like Trix would say, yeah, Trix will say that this all blends together. I put that by the time we hit I Make You Feel.
also.
So
So we're putting on that note just before you see last week's episode. Scream Theater album did not blend together.
really,
The songs are distinctively different. You just don't get it, man.
I mean, they kind of did for me, but like they are different. I acknowledge that it's a lot of grunge, and I think I said it was better than Violent Soho. So
Anyway,
that's last week.
yeah, so on to last. But
But
in this
yeah,
one, if you ask me to tell one of the songs apart, you're just gonna get a blank stare for 20 minutes.
I can recognize two. The Machine, because that's definitely Death Stranding. I remember that in Death Stranding, and Blue Eyes. I remember being a little bit different than the others, but that's about it. Like,
Hmm.
I'm. It's like the worst thing you can be as an album. Like, yeah, you can be bad, but you can also just be kind of forgettable in that.
I mean, nah, it's not too bad. I mean, I guess it depends on the way that you see it. Because some albums have been remembered as so bad that they've become quite cult classics, or interesting things have happened. You got the famous cases from back in the '60s with the Shags,
Mm.
which is seen by some of the most well-known figures in music to be one of the best albums of all time, and you don't know if they're just shitposting you or not.
And it's like stuff like more modern, like Saint Anger. People remember Saint Anger. People talk about Saint Anger.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen one person ever say San Anger was a good movie. Not good movie, good album. I don't think anyone's ever said
Like,
I'm a good speaker.
but like the funny thing is, like people remember Saint Anger. They talk
Yeah,
about it. Like I think Saint Anger is a fun song to listen to, even though it's bad.
Wasn't like the actual title track of that album like the only only thing people actually enjoyed off that album?
I think people enjoyed other stuff.
Yeah.
That's the song that I enjoy. I think the lyrics are horribly cheesy, but that's a
Yeah.
different topic. But then it's like you get to Ross here, and there's nothing. You know, it's like with The Room. People will remember The Room. The
Yeah,
Room,
yeah.
the fact being bad, is a thing that will exist in pop culture.
Yeah, this
So in
will
a
be
way, it
something
has
when
a
we do our
better.
rankings. We'll kind of just be like, oh yeah, fuck, we forgot to put Russ on there.
Ross will have its place. Well, some of the songs on Ross will have their place in Death Stranding, and that's
Hmm.
about it.
Hmm. Well,
Which is it's kind of funny to think about that. Like Hideo Kojima went to Iceland and found this in a CD shop, or one of their albums in a CD shop, and was like, "Hey, I like these guys, or whatever."
I mean, more power to him. I mean, isn't Hideo Kojima really into fuck, what is it? Synth pop, I believe.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was his 2018 album of the year. Which, look, I highly disagree with this. If you got to say Church's "Love Is Dead" is the best album of 2018,
Remember there was like a
More power to you, Hideo. It's not even Church's best album, but whatever.
remember there was a story because in Metal Gear Solid 3 in the credits he put in a song by Star Sailor, which I don't know if you know anything about. I barely know about Star Sailor,
Nah, nah.
but like I guess someone had recommended to him, but they had actually recommended looking up the band Stella Star, and so he's like, "Oh, what's Star Sailor? Oh, okay." So he has a history of like just like including these random bands, and sometimes they're good, and sometimes it's whatever. And I don't know,
That's the Zach Braff technique
there's
for
kind of weird
writing
stories that go
movies.
with it. Not like Death Stranding is a hell of a game. Kojima cannot write compelling women for like 15 years now. Like the boss was cool, but like, hey, boy,
Did you ever see the update to Counter Strike with the one female skin that they added in there?
it's like the new thing I was hearing about. It's like, hey, you can play as a female now. Oh
Yeah, hold
boy.
on. I'll search it up. It has probably the worst fucking description. Um,
Valve was like, hey, we're putting out Half-Life Alex. Maybe we should put a female in Counter Strike now too.
there's a there's a great one here. It's apparently when Agent Ava takes damage, she still uses the male voice line. That's that's funny.
Oh boy,
That
they
is.
this.
See. But I'm gonna have to go into the onto the website. But trust me, it is worth it for how cringy and just you know the term "arse that's not like the other like the subreddit. Sorry, not arse that's not like the other girls. It's like it's something straight out of what you would seen out of there. Let's see.
Yeah.
I think it's like way at the end. Nope, they're gonna make it really hard for me to find this.
The funny thing is that Kojima is able to make characters that have really complex backstories and have really interesting personalities and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, all the women he writes go through like just prolonged scenes of torture and just have horrible, horrible things happen to them that they go through in great detail. And the men don't really have that kind of treatment.
Here we go. Here is
And
the
it's just like,
yeah. So I just want to quickly write. This is the statement or the description of the female agent in Counter Strike.
okay.
Initially underestimated, Special Agent Ava soon became her team's ultimate secret weapon. Despite receiving 3 out of 5 possible FBI honorary medals, Ava is surprisingly indifferent to her accomplishments. The way she sees it, it's nothing compared to growing up with four older brothers in urban New Jersey. Special Agent Ava takes pleasure from the simple things: clean winds, cold beer, and turning bad guys into thin crust pizza pie.
Fuck.
That is women. That is apparently
It's,
all women.
oh
Oh god.
boy.
Oh boy.
I wonder what her 4 brothers are doing now. They probably work at a pizza joint or something.
Uh,
That's writing in video games, I guess. Oh Jesus
I
Christ.
know it's cringy as fuck. Hey, we have this women character, yeah, and We need her to be awesome. How do we do that? Make her relatable yet cool? Nah, she had 4 older brothers.
Yeah, they got this woman character.
She likes beer.
What's
She's not like the other girls.
this woman character's name? Her name is Mama. Why is her name Mama? Well, because when she was giving birth, it was a terrible, terrible tragedy. Oh, really? And like that's just what Kojima does. It's like, why is this person named this? Well, actually, it's related to their core personality. Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's about it for Ross. Like I said, The Machine is fine. It's a song I remember from Death Stranding, and it was fine. Blue Eyes was kind of like a little bit stripped down, a little more home recording sounding, and that's what I remember of that. I don't even remember really what the song's about, but I remember that feeling. And I think 222 might have been okay. I don't know. What about you? Everything else is meh.
Everything just fucking blended together, and there's nothing on here that ever spoke to me as I would listen to that by choice. So I'm gonna do tricks here and just say, nah, all blended together. Can't do it. I can't remember. I can only remember what it was ripping off because when I listen to it, I just get this. I just would constantly. I had it down as a mental note. Everything I do here, I write down as a mental note because if I can't really remember it without a note, then it's not really worth talking about, in my opinion.
Looking at my notes.
Granted, that means I have a lot less to talk about, but yeah.
Yeah, sounded like Minecraft music, and also the one that put me to sleep.
Minecraft music is more memorable than this.
It is, but like it has like a nice piano opening, and then I'm like looking at my handwriting just kind of like go downhill for like the entire song.
Yeah.
And, like the last line is just kind of like me trying to make a sentence and scribbling just out over and over. Experience of this.
Anyway, that has been Ross's Low Roar. I don't think we're going to really be talking about this album until
Low Roar's
we do a
Ross.
ranking. I don't think...
Low Roar's Ross.
Yeah, I don't fucking care. We're just going to rank it at some point in the future, and then we'll just be like, oh yeah, that was an album. And it's only just not going to get last place because LSD is so memorably bad.
It's both of our number 3s for this week, I'm going to say. Probably, yeah?
Yeah. We'll probably get Tricks later. I don't know. What do you want to do? Do you want to do Mac DeMarco or King Gizzard?
Sure, let's do King Gizzard. Maybe they'll come on. I don't know. We'll see.
You never know. They're an hour late at this point, and this is the Judge Tricks for Having a Life episode.
And I was an actor suddenly. I understand that things happen.
I've been in all episodes but 2. Which means I've probably been out the most. Anyway, on that note, let's go into King Gizzard's Infest the Rat's Nest. I talked about King Gizzard's in introduction the last time. Talked about him with Nonagon Infinity. So for those who are new to this, which would be a very small amount of people, knowing the amount of people who actually listen to our podcast, King Gizzard is a collective from Melbourne. Just putting out album after album after album. And this year they put out 2 albums. Now, I probably should have told you to probably listen to the one this year, but not seriously. Like earlier this year with Fishing for Fishies. Instead, I went for the second one. Because the albums are somewhat related to the point of where you actually get the album arts and they kind of fit a bit.
That's cool. Nice.
In which this year they went full environmentalist and probably the most political King Gizzard has ever been. Starting off their first album, Fishing for Fishies, which was an album completely about environmentalism. First song, the title track, Fishing for Fishies, I believe was about overfishing. Or just the kind of like animal cruelty. I could be dead on wrong about that. Going into a full album about plastic, pollution, and starting off with a whole kind of climate change topic, which is then absolutely bombarded and put in your face in Infest the Rat's Nest, with the opening track and the lead single that they put out before they put out Fishing for Fishies. Fishing for Fishies is a complete kind of like boogie album. So imagine everyone's surprised when Planet B comes out as a single a week before the album's Fishing for Fishies release. And suddenly they've gone full thrash.
It's real thrash metal.
Yeah. And it took me by surprise when that came out, but you better believe I was fucking hyped. That was just fun as hell to know. And
Oh,
Infest the Rat's Nest seems to be the way that they kind of tie together is Fishing for Fishy seems to kind of be where we're at now. With this whole like we're just constantly polluting. And Infest the Rat's Nest kind of seems to be where we're heading. And
great.
it's not seeming in a way that we can stop it. It's in a way that these people, like, the ones who are high up, the ones who are lobbying to stop all these environmental protection laws happening, you know, and they're considered the rats. So obviously, there's a big story that happens in this. You have the song "Mars for the Rich," which is the second one, which is obviously about how when Mars becomes inhabitable, only the rich will be able to be there, and all the poor will have to stay on Earth. And I don't know if you could really follow along with this, but Infest the Rat's Nest does have a full story from start to finish. It's about Earth dying, the rich go to Mars, the poor stay on Earth, a bug seems to take over the Earth and everyone seems to be infected. Those who survive
So Superbug comes in.
and create the ship the Venetian One. The Venetian One ends up accidentally flying into the sun. On their second attempt, Venetian 2 manages to make it into Venus. Venus, sorry. Not Venus. Fuck me. Venus. On there, with the song Self-Immolate, they go into Venus, but however, they find a climate on there too harsh to actually live, and they end up being set on fire and dying. And then you got the last song of Hell, which is, we're all going to hell. We're going to kill the rich when they get into hell. We're going to fight them back there. Which is that right? The whole door to hell is amber. And it's a kick-ass fucking story.
It's like I got bits and pieces. Like I researched it a bit, so I knew like kind of what was going on, and it's really interesting.
It's
like
incredibly interesting.
I was not hot on Nominagon Infinity, but this one I was really into.
I will probably say this right now. I think this is the best album of King Gizzard's career.
We'll see. I don't know, but it's pretty good.
I
will say it's a tad Metallica-y at points, like to the point of like, okay, I get it, but yeah.
I think there's enough that they do so well in this, though, that yes, there are a bit of points where you might say it's a bit Metallica-y, but I think it's not old as thrash metal as well. There's a bit of kind of that stoner rock in there as well, especially Superbug.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, Superbug, like, spoiler, Superbug's my favorite song on the album.
Superbug is incredible. It's probably the most repetitive song off this album, and it's definitely the slowest, but it is...
It's also terrifying.
Yeah, it builds up, and when the kind of whole shouting of Superbug comes in the end, and it's just epic.
Like, it's just about this massive virus outbreak that is just, like, overrunning everything. And it's just,
I love
really
also
dark.
how the story ties together, and not just a way where they're just creating a story for nothing, but it does actually, each song seems to have a different meaning of it as well. Like Self-Immolate is not only just about them burning up in Venus, but it's also kind of a way to talk about climate change, about how we are kind of because we are causing climate change, but causing ourselves to be set on fire like this. This is incredibly relevant with all the bushfires that are happening in Australia right now, by the way.
Still going? How
Still
are those
going. It seems to be far away from us, but they're still over Australia, so fuck. I want to be set on fire.
I mean, like, I think the first song on the album is like, it's kind of an obvious pun, but also a clever pun. B. There's no plan B. This is it.
Yep.
And they try other plans, and it fails horribly, and everyone dies, pretty much.
And you also have the end of Venetian 1 with the whole there is one planet V, which is the whole this is our new plan. We're getting the planet Venus, and then it just all goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And that also, I think it's good that it also comes horribly wrong when they do their message. So it's not just the whole like, oh, but we'll be fine, we'll be able to go to Venus and everything will be good. It's a whole, we're fucked. And every plan that we have fucking fails. We can't get to Mars. Mars has been inhabited by the rich. We're still here as the poor. We're fucked on fucking Venus.
Elon Musk is on Mars. We're going to Venus.
Yep.
That's just how it's going to go.
But also, Mars for the rich is a fucking 2.5.
Wasn't my favorite, but it's pretty good.
It
gave me definitely the eat the rich vibes.
Absolutely.
Guttural. Like, it's also kind of poppy in a weird way, but it's very guttural.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
It probably is the most accessible song off this album, but fuck is it fun. I wouldn't say there's like any song on here that isn't fun as well. I think it actually does kind of vary itself a lot. Like every song off here is distinctive from another. Only one you could say that maybe not be is Venetian One does sound a bit like Planet B, but I think there was a lot of difference still in those to kind of
also, I mean, King Gizzard has a sound. And,
yeah.
You know, the parts that sound like Nonagon. So whatever. It's just kind of what they do. You know, so I'm not going to fault them for having two songs that sound kind of alike when they put out 1 million albums in 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, what album is this? This is like 17 or 18 by them, and they've been around. They haven't put out any album outside of this decade.
But Montreal was gonna like be a real fucking prolific band, and they just outclassed them. Like Jesus Christ.
My favorite was always Stefan Stevens. Yes, I'm gonna do an album for each state.
I really wish he would.
I remember seeing a tweet. It was Donald Trump's gonna promise to build a wall in every state and then cheap out on a few, just like Stefan Stevens.
Oh, he got the most important one in. Illinois, baby. Come on, feel the Illinois.
I mean, that is a good pun. Ooh.
It took me a while to figure out that Venusian One was actually the chorus. Like, I could not figure out what they were saying. And so, like, most of my notes are just trying to figure out, like, what they're saying. So, like, Venus, the end world, Venus, the end point, okay.
Well, Venus is definitely in the back half of this album, quite a bit of a topic. I believe Self-Immolate, the actual lyrics are Venusian sickness dire, I want to be set on fire.
Also, like, solos in this album, which I was not entirely expecting. After Nonagon, which is just kind of everything everywhere at once.
Yeah, they go straight with the solos, and it's mostly guitar solos, but there are quite a couple drum solos as well, especially at the start of songs like Planet B and Self-Immolate.
Oh, definitely. Is this space metal?
I would not know. Let's see what Wikipedia thinks.
I'm gonna say it's thrash metal, but like it's about space. It's about travel. It's space metal.
What do they call this? Thrash metal and stoner rock are the only genres that seems to be going on. Oh, so this is an incredibly short album, and yet it kind of every time I listen to it, it feels shorter than it is.
It feels like a full length album. It does the job.
It feels like a full length, but yet feels shorter than it actually is. Yet it's still quite short.
Here's the thing, right? So this is stoner rock. I think they also classify Mac DeMarco as stoner rock, and they could not be different. They cannot be any more different.
I don't know if I would call Mac DeMarco stoner rock. I think I'd call him slacker rock.
I've heard both terms.
Yeah, that's the. I mean, I guess you could also probably say this is closer to stoner metal than that, but there's so much difference in it. And I think stoner, when it comes to a genre, usually kind of just means really slow and kind of heavy.
I suppose. But
and a more kind of like, because slacker is kind of chill and kind of just slow paced, while stoner is usually kind of dragging along.
And I think Mac DeMarco's album kind of does both.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, some would say that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. I mean, There's a lot to this that kind of actually relates to the earlier album, which I'll kind of quickly talk about, but won't go too far into because this is probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode anyway. You had songs like Plastic Boogie, where the lyrics are "fuck all that plastic," and other songs like what is it? I think you got the Bird song and obviously Fishing for Fishies in there, and the whole contrast that these two albums have is probably the most surprising thing about this. No one was expecting to get straight from Boogie album into this kind of fresh stoner thing, and I think it had to be a band like King Gizzard to do this as well as they've done it.
Sure, yeah.
Which is a band that has just had so much experience just changing genre like that. I think this is an incredible experience to listen to, and I kind of implore everyone of this year, like for an album of this year, if I could say one album to listen to, I reckon it would be King Gizzard's Infest the Rat's Nest.
It's definitely not Ross.
It's definitely not Russ. At that note, because I think we're going to hurry up and do the next album and then go into our top 10s. What's your favorite and least favorite?
Favorite Superbug. It's hard for me to actually pick a least favorite because I thought it was really solid and it blended all together. But actually, not really. It's just that everything was really good. I will say if I had to pick one that I didn't like as much, maybe Self-Immolate.
Really?
But even that's just kind of like that just felt like the one you could cut out. Like it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad or anything.
I disagree heavily. I think Self-Immolate works the best. So I want to add that the last minute of this album is perfect, but I wanted it to go longer than it did.
It's the little Infest the Rat's Nest kind of short song.
Yeah, where it really kind of just changes the song at the end of Hell, and then it has one of the most banging riffs of the whole album for like 30 seconds.
It's really cool.
Yeah. I would still have to say...
Like I said.
I have to say my favorite there is still... Hell is one of my favorites off here. Just because of the ending. Same with songs like Self-Immolate and stuff. But my favorite is just undoubtedly... I know it's the most accessible and probably a weak choice to pick off this. But having so much fun listening to it is Master the Rich.
It's a tune. It's a tune, all right. Like you said, I don't want to be banned from the podcast, but
yeah, you better not be.
Like I said, Self-Immolate's just like if I had to pick one. It's not bad. It's still pretty good. Yeah. I like it.
I do disagree with your Self-Immolate just because that was one of the prior singles and I listened to that a lot. But it's obviously differing opinions. I'd actually say the least favorite is probably Venetian 1.
Okay, I can see that.
I think a lot of people don't like Venetian 2 as much as the rest of the album, but I actually think that one's a lot more funner to listen to than Venetian 1 is.
Both pretty fun. And Perihelion is also really fun too.
Perihelion is great.
Perihelion.
And with that, let's hurry up and do Trix's album because they're just not coming online today.
Here comes the cowboy.
Here comes the cowboy. This is a shit post and a half, and I love it.
I really like this album a lot. I did not expect to like Mac DeMarco ever, and here we are.
Yeah,
the world is upside down.
I mean, if you've seen some of the music videos for this album, they are obscure to say the least. I can't even begin to describe the one for the title track, which might be one of the most surreal music videos I have seen in my life, let alone this year.
Okay. That's promising. I'll have to go watch that.
Yeah, I don't even know what the fuck it is, but it's just there. It's this whole CGI video for 3 minutes, and what the fuck is Mac on? And
I mean,
it's a massive difference to all the other singles which had a music video, which are him dressed up as like a lizard, as a pig, and just a very... It's surreal, but it's not quite the surrealness of the title track, which is like a 3 minute... I consider the opener here, the title track as well, to just be an intro, let alone an actual opener song. I reckon Nobody is supposed to be the proper opener. But
Here Comes the Cowboy is a pretty good opener. Like it kind of
sets
the tone, and it tells you. Like I was reading about how he like plays that to start concerts. And
Yeah,
everyone was just like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he loves it.
yeah, it's a shit post. It is the music that Mac DeMarco wants to make, and what he wants to make is just whatever he considers fun to make, and I cannot fucking blame him. This is like, if you took this album 100% seriously, you would find incredibly less enjoyment than most albums that you would have this year. However, it's not an album to be taken seriously. It literally ends with him screaming "Yeehaw" for like a minute
Yeah.
and a half.
And the
And
thing is, like in high school, when Mac DeMarco was first becoming big, like I just associated him with Mac Miller and just the people who listened to both of them, and I hated them. And I never expected to make something like this.
I
Like,
don't think it's his best album by far. I think This Old Dog still trumps this album. But,
I don't listen to it. But,
yeah. And there are, as much as I say this is not a serious album, there are still some kind of serious themes. Nobody seems to be more about him kind of coping with the success that he seems to have been getting.
the Heart's kind of about Mac Miller.
Yeah. You got, uh,
He
Mac,
apparently he's like on that track a little bit. I think at the end there.
yeah. Uh, for those who aren't too much knowledge about Mac DeMarco, he too is like crazy, and it's to the point in which everyone is, and correctly so, concerned about his mental health, seeming as he seems to get drunk all the time. It's not as bad as his first concerts in which he was trying to get successful, in which he has songs about it actually, freaking out the neighborhood, in which he would literally stick drumsticks up his ass.
Okay, so performance artist. Okay.
He did some crazy shit back in the day, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But this, and we have moved off quite a bit from the jazz that he would call it, that he used to make back in those first initial albums, into a more acoustic and kind of mature sound. This is probably his most mature album to date, and I think that does work a bit against him. Like when it comes to the whole sound, I'm not talking about the lyrics or what he's doing. When it comes to a lot of the sounds that he does on a lot of these songs, I do think it's actually kind of his most mature. Now, that's for a Mac DeMarco standard, so obviously if you compare it to a lot, it's still pretty immature. Especially with songs like Choo Choo.
Love Choo Choo. It's great.
Choo Choo is amazing.
See,
Choo
like I
Choo,
think
come and ride with
like
me.
this whole album is just like Mac DeMarco sitting like in a sunroom with you in like a nice comfy chair playing songs for you, and you're just talking.
It's
And he's just gonna troll you a bit.
It's definitely
so
not
casual.
without its flaws. There's no doubt about that. But however, there's so much that it makes up for. It's again far from perfect, but it's definitely not far from fun. And
Honestly, if you cut out the last three songs, I think it'd be a great album, like the
Yeah.
best album ever. Like, not ever, but like,
yeah,
I think it's the last three songs that kind of bring it down a bit.
it definitely does go for a lot longer than it needs to.
Yeah.
I reckon he could have made a shorter one and had a bit of fun. However, it's still fun as hell to listen to this album, and it's I can understand a lot of people not liking this album because they're probably expecting something more like This Old Dog. But
I learned just not to go into expecting anything because artists are gonna do what they want to do.
yeah, you do still have quite a lot of fun songs off here. Stuff that you might not consider anywhere close to your into the best songs of the year. But songs like Little Dog's March, Choo Choo, Here Comes the Cowboy, the title track, which you might consider to be one of the worst because of how it just drones on, but it's
Kind of the
supposed to.
point.
Yeah, it's the point of it. It's a shit person and a half. And look, with someone who has the fame that Mac DeMarco does, it's good to see that he is at a point in which he can just create the music that he wants to create, whether or not people want to listen to it.
I think that's better for artists than like trying to make the mass audience appeal shit. Like it's like when I look at Kevin Smith's career. Like I appreciate what Kevin Smith is doing now more than like 10 years ago. Like Yoga Hosers and Tusk are fucking weird ass movies that no one else could make, and they're stupid and kind of strange, sure, but like he's doing what he wants to do, and that's
And
way better for him.
And also, you got the absolutely gorgeous Nobody on this album, which, when it comes to making a really simplified track, which is just simplistic, chill, Nobody is that song, but yet you can still remember it quite fondly, at least I can, at least throughout this year, because, surprise, surprise, this week was not the first week that I've been listening to this Mac DeMarco album. His album back in 2017, This Old Dog, was actually my number 9 of the year, so I've actually had quite a bit of fun listening to Mac DeMarco albums.
I have to listen to more of it because I'd never expected
Yeah.
this kind of interesting stuff.
His debut and I mean 2 is a good album, but honestly I don't really think he hit that fun a real fun listening to until This Old Dog. I think 2 is still quite inconsistent. Salad Days is alright. But yeah, this one is better than people have given it credit for.
You think of Finally Alone?
Finally Alone. I think that one is, in my opinion, probably one of the more forgettable ones off this.
Really?
Yeah, but I could be
Really?
mixing it up. I don't have the track list with me.
Finally Alone is like my favorite track on this album. It is.
Yeah, it's
so
nowhere.
cool.
It's nowhere near worse. This is. I mean, like I said, the album still does have its flaws, but it's also got its fun with it, and it does
I was
create.
reading an interview where
Yeah, go on.
I was reading an interview where he talks about wanting to kind of do a Sinatra thing at some point, like just have like a crooning album.
Mm.
And Finally Alone reminds me of like kind of like a Sinatra song, like maybe like kind of like almost bossa nova influence or something, like Girl from Ipanema or something, but not exactly. But this kind of reminds me of that kind of style, where it's just really fun and casual, and that's what I like about some of these songs, especially like I think Preoccupied and On the Square, just kind of all sounding very, very almost like music, like elevator music, but like way better than any of that could be. I don't know.
On that note, should we go into our favorites and least favorites from this one?
Sure. My favorite's Finally Alone. I also like Heart to Heart, and K is really good as well. My least favorite are the last 3 tracks.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
I would say All of Our Yesterdays is probably my least favorite, and I love Nobody. I think it's so just nice to hear it.
It's a nice song. I like Nobody.
Now,
Me too.
unfortunately,
It's a
fortunately,
fun,
we're not
like,
getting
trolling.
Trick's opinions on here, so we're just gonna get their opinions copy pasted into the description, most likely, if I have remembered to do that.
Okay, we'll see. Baby Bye Bye is also kind of fun, but way too long.
I love the ending though. The yeehaw! It's fucking funny as fuck. Thanks,
It's a
Mac.
cowboy album. You got a yeehaw.
Got a yeehaw. When I say yee, you say ha.
Dog's March is also a fun song. I like it's a song about a good dog, I'm sure.
On that note,
Yeah.
let's get into some quick rankings for the albums here, and then we're going to go into a quick ranking of what our albums of the year are. Now I got a way to pad it out a bit, so let's just quickly go into the rankings now. You're free to.
We both know where.
Oh,
both know where
Trix!
number 3.
Trix is online. Trix is online.
Shit. Oh shit!
Trix
Oh
is
shit!
online.
Oh shit!
Get
Is
online.
it gonna happen? Get in the room. Get on the mic.
Get online. We
Get on the
still
mic.
in. We shopping.
Let's see.
Trix.
Do it.
Trix.
Oh, we both know our number 3s. Our number 3s are both Ross.
Both Ross Butler Raw. That's just You're number 2.
Unfortunate. Oh.
There
Trix.
are no lands of signal. No man's land. I'll give an update next week. I'm just gonna give us ranking them, please.
Oh, Give us a ranking. Give us a ranking. Give us a ranking. Give us a ranking. A ranking.
Yeah, so just do your number 2.
Number 2 is King Gizzard.
God, you're wrong.
I really, really liked Here Comes the Cowboy. It's very like
We get it. You're gay for Mac DeMarco.
casual,
Me too. Please, just
an
stop mentioning.
emotional. Okay, Mr. Jeff Mangum.
I like many different artists.
But
Alright, so
what
their
is that
3-2-1 is incredibly similar to you. They can't even remember. Trix can't even remember what Russ was. That's how memorable it is. God, that's fun. That's funny. Yeah, my number.
Two is Giz for them.
Yeah.
Number 1 is your number 2 is Mac DeMarco. Your number 1 is Gizzard.
Yeah. Trix, that's the same as Dominic. For those that didn't quite catch that.
And we both feel like Mac DeMarco. Turns out.
Yeah. With this, I'm gonna say to Trix, 2019 album rankings. Oh fuck! I mistyped that. Oh well.
Renackings.
Renackings. Here we go. We're getting anything. Getting live updates and Tricks on podcast.
Now live with our correspondent in the field.
With this, before Trix says anything, I want to go into what is going to be our everyone's fun. I have listened to a shit ton of albums, and a lot of them I can remember, and a lot of them I can't. So we are now going to go into what I have considered to be the top 5 worst albums I have heard this year. Are you ready to be shocked by what I consider to be number 5?
I will say I can't do a top 5 because I've listened to like less than 15 albums.
Yep.
But go on.
This one might shock everyone, and I want to implore to everyone who's been saying this album is good and everything, and been trying to defend this. I'm just saying, if you're a fan of this band, they have previous albums which are incredible. Just because you're a hardcore fan doesn't mean this album is good. This album was shit. Number 5 is Sticky Fingers, Yours to Keep.
Ooh.
I was so disappointed with this album. I can't even stress.
Let's talk about how you also give us the highlights on everything that happens with Sticky Fingers week by week in the chat. Also,
I do, and their fan base is being so shit. Fuck off. I love Land of Pleasure. I will defend Land of Pleasure for the rest of my life. This album was not good. It tried to make it seem like it was going off with his issues, but it was feigning it all in. Everything about this was so fake. It had the one good song, Loose Ends. Loose Ends at least had enough of a tune to it to make it funky, but it was so still pretentious in its lyrics that I gave it 91 in my top 100 songs of last year. I'm starting to regret it the more I listen to it. With how
What song is this?
Loose Ends off the Sticky Fingers album,
Okay,
because
right.
that was a single, and it's so pretentious off it that yeah, it is the number 5 worst album of the year. Sticky Fingers. If you're gonna make the comeback album for to get everyone to love you again, you gotta make a better album than this. That's all I'm saying.
You gotta stop being shit in public, also.
Yeah, that also works. Number 4, I have put as Weezer's Black Album.
Okay.
That one had a better song of a peak quality than I'd say the Sticky Fingers one did, but literally everything else off that album was just the same old repetitive shit that Weezer does year after year after year after year, and you can put out some fun albums. Like, the Teal album was fun. This Black album was not.
Oh, I can keep sleeping on Weezer then?
You can keep sleeping on Weezer. This is coming from someone who considers Pinkerton to be one of the best albums of all time. Weezer's Black Album was boring as shit.
There's a new Weezer album coming in May.
Maybe that would be funner. Who knows? The White Album turned out to be good, so you never know. Number 3, the first gay person I'm picking on, King Princess's Cheap
Jesus.
Queen.
Okay.
I could
Tell me
not.
about this. I don't know them.
King Princess who every song that they write, every single song, and it's not like that's something you can't write about. Seems to be about their lesbianism, which is that's fine. If that's the topic that's dearest to you, that's fair enough to write about. And man, talk about forgettable. Talk about pretentious. Talk about bad, man. I did.
Compared to Thelma Plum.
Thelma Plum was actually a good album, though.
That's like the closest thing I have to this, I guess.
Man,
Help me understand.
this is just pretentious as shit, and it'd either be like, "Oh, you broke my heart," or "I wanna fuck you," and it gets tiring, and none of the songs are actually sexy in those ones. So it's not. Janelle Monáe, when she does "I Wanna Fuck You" song, it's actually sexy.
Yeah.
Make me
Okay.
feel is the description of a sexy song. King Princess can't do that for shit.
I mean, Make Me Feel also Origin by Prince, so there you go.
Yeah. Number 2, I think I want to put a Dominic out now. What would you think
Okay.
are considered to be the worst 2 albums that I've heard this year?
Ross and LSD.
You got one of them.
Oh, really?
Number 2 is Kanye West's Jesus is King.
Okay. I have not listened to the whole thing, but I've listened to enough to.
The
think
more
it's
I've listened to this album, the more I just think this is someone who I put Kids See Ghosts as my number 6 of last year, by the way. So I do think Kanye can actually put out a fantastic album. This is not it. This is look. All you need to do is listen to Closed on Sunday, and that's enough to realize why it's this bad. And now number one. What is the worst album that I heard this year?
I will say real quick that I also liked Ye.
You liked what?
Ye.
D.
Ye.
Yee.
The
Oh,
album
yay.
from Kanye's album from last year.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. I was thinking Yee.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah,
Yay.
I think it's supposed to be pronounced Yay because Kanye.
Like Kanye. Okay,
Yeah.
that I should have recognized that. I'm dumb. I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries, Dominic. We all make stupid decisions.
Anyway.
Like, one of the biggest stupid decisions that you ever did was picking LSD,
Yeah.
my number 1 worst album of the year. Fuck!
At the time, it's like, I really like Sia. I'm interested in what she's doing. This is a weird collaboration, and it's bad.
So we're going to now just quickly go into Trick's top of the year, and this is ranking all the albums that they've listened to throughout the whole year. It's a small list, so...
Even counting everything that
Yeah.
that we've recommended here.
We're going to go from worst to best here, and worst is LSD. Bag Raiders is next for them. Gen Japanese Wallpaper. Then Infest the Rat's Nest. Return to Wherever at number 3. Here Comes the Cowboy at number 2, and Petite League's Ratno at number 1. That is no surprise for Tricks. So who wants to do their top 10 first this year?
Let me do a count real quick. I have 15 things on my list, period.
Yeah,
One of them is a single.
That's fine. Just do your top 10.
Or just... Alright.
Just go for it.
I'm gonna exclude the single, because you probably know what it is.
Yeah.
Fuck, let me do this real quick.
Listens to
All right,
Old
number
Montreal
10.
once.
I didn't count that because that's an album for 2020.
Alright.
My number 10 is Return to Wherever, because I really like Typhoon Turnpike. That's one of my favorite songs of the year. Other than that, I don't really care. Number 9 is Bag Raiders. Alma Plum. 7's BTS. 6 is Rattler. Number 5 is one of the 2 releases from Health this year. Volume 4, Slaves of Fear. pretty good album. I was thinking of putting it on one of these episodes, but I wasn't sure, especially after we did the first album, if it would be something that fit well or be interesting enough. But it's pretty decent. Number, it's like number 5, number 4. I don't know. Did I say that was that number 5?
Uh,
Fuck.
so
I already forgot.
what have you done? You've done number 10 was I forgot.
Number 10 was Twerp.
Yep, Trip. All right.
9 is Bag Raiders. 7 Stumble Plum. 6 BTS. 5 Petite League.
What was 8?
8, fuck. Twerp. Number Bag Raiders 9. 8 Thelma. BTS 7. Petite League 6. That's where I'm getting fucked up. I keep skipping one.
All right. Number 5.
Helpless 5. Helpless 5.
All right, we're up to number 4. Here we go.
Okay. Number 4 is the latest album by Devin Townsend, Empath. And it's not like I said, like this list is made up of albums that are not really my thing necessarily. Like they have their ups and downs and their qualities and stuff. Like Empath is a very, very positive, like worlds coming together, kumbaya metal kind of album. You know, it's all about, you know, having faith in yourself and all that kind of stuff. And there's some fun, good messages in there, but it's also a bit much.
Believe in yourself. Yeah.
It can be very empowering, but also, and like, I really am amazed by like all the instrumentation that things Devin can do in his band, and all the cameos he can get in his albums. Like Chad Kroger's in this album for all people, but in a different year, it would not rank so high.
Number 3.
Number 3 is Infest the Rat's Nest.
Good choice.
Which means you probably know my number 2.
Which would be Mac DeMarco.
Because I really liked a lot of Here Comes the Cowboy. And number one, the only album that I liked all the way through from this year that I've listened to in this incredibly small sampling is the other release from Health, the soundtrack they did for the Grand Theft Auto Online mode Arena War, which came out in December, but they released the album in March.
Yeah, well, I consider from December to here anyway, so.
They're like they do some stuff from Slaves of Fear, but like their whole album is so fucking good.
So
like it's mostly instrumental. There's not a lot of vocals. It's just fuck, dude.
I've spent a lot
of
this year.
It outclasses their actual album.
I've spent a lot of this year now listening to albums from many a year, and tried to give it a lot from this year a listen. And to that point, I have given all albums a ranking. It's however many I put on there. So picking a top 10 was actually incredibly hard, but I am cementing it as this, and there was a couple honorable mentions I want to put out there, like Japanese Wallpaper, Alex G, Black Midi, Anamanaguchi, Clippings album this year, the other King Gizzard album, Fishing for Fishies, and even Petite League's Rattler, which ended up getting, probably out of all the albums that were done for 2019 that I didn't put in myself, I think Petite League's Rattler was the highest one out of that.
All right. I think it's also for me, too.
I think, what did I put that as? I think that's 30, 29.
Actually, no, I think I'm probably going to put Mac DeMarco and Invest higher for me, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think I put Petite League at 27. But anyway, my number 10. Now, for those who have been watching this whole podcast, you know I am a predominantly only listen to Australian artists when it comes to this podcast. To prove how bullshit it is, there is only 2 Australian artists in this whole top 10.
Them is King Gizzard.
And we'll find the other one later. At number 10 is an underground, somewhere from American act in the kind of Midwestern emo scene, which surprised me with their EP earlier this year, Generation 3, which was a whole Pokemon-based math rock EP. Put out their album a couple weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago at the time of this recording, and is one of the best emo albums of this year. It is Origami Angel. It is what?
Generation 3, they're called?
No, that was the EP they put out. The artist is Origami Angel, with the album Somewhere City. I recommend people give this one a listen, because it is one of the funnest kind of emo albums of this year. And it's short. It's like bang on 30 minutes. It flows together as an album perfectly, and I am really impressed by this debut that they put out. Number 9 has to be one of probably the saddest stories in music this year. Obviously, we were left with the passing of David Berman earlier this year, who tragically killed themselves. I couldn't remember exactly how they did it, but that's irrelevant. And a couple of weeks before they offed themselves, we got the release of his new project after 10 years, Purple Mountains. And I will say, yes, the context of his death does make this album a lot more haunting. But what is more haunting is how fun the album is to listen to. He has this upbeat tune to it somehow in a lot of these songs. Yes, some of these are also kind of dark and depressing. And it's dark as hell, but it's fun as hell to listen to. And is one of the best folk albums of this year. It's like this kind of alternative rock album. And it is fun, and that is the scary part.
Yeah.
Number 8 goes out
so
to
like
anybody.
Covering all the fun to that or something.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the song "That's Just the Way That I Feel" is fucking oof. And it's just a whole song about how he hates himself, pretty much. Number 8 goes out to anybody with a broken heart. It is Tyler, the Creator's Igor. Songs like Earthquake and I Think have been heavy on my playlist this whole year. And I can't even express how to say how some of these deeper cuts are just memorable and fun. Like A Boy Is a Gun, Igor's theme. There's some incredible... It's not really hip-hop really on here as much as it is kind of more of an R&B style a lot of the times. The rapping is quite minimal, which is odd to hear from Tyler, the Creator. But it's a really good album from start to finish. Number 7 goes to one of the calmest albums, but yeah, it still has a couple moments of kind of like angst and rawness to it, is Big Thief's UFOF, or UFO Friend, I think is the way it says it. UFOF, the title track off that, has been heavy on my playlist from the start of this year, I think, or whenever this came out. They put out 2 albums this year. Their other one, Two Hands, was also really good, but I think UFOF was the better album this year. I forgot what her name is. It's like Adriana... What is it? Yeah. Adrienne. No, it's Adrienne.
Adrienne Lenker.
Adrienne Lenker. Her voice is unique and actually quite beautiful to listen to. I think it works incredibly well with the tunes that they've written for this album. Now, the first Australian artist that I have picked for this list, and this is technically not an album, but it technically is an album. It's Flume's Hi, This Is Flume mixtape. Flume is...
count.
Yeah. Flume has gone back to his more experimental style that he did at the start of his career, and has created one of his best works yet. From having such bangers like How to Build a Relationship, which features the one and only JPEG Mafia, who puts out one of his best bars that he's put out this whole year. It's probably the best song he's featured on or been a part of, including his solo project.
Have you heard the song with Health that he did?
I haven't heard the Health one, so maybe that one is better, but How to Build a Relationship is fucking awesome. You also got artists like Slow Tie and Sophie who make some appearances, and Eprom who kind of pops up. We do actually have a remix of a Sophie song here with Is It Cold in the Water? But listening to a lot of this album in its more instrumental style, and just letting him make his own kind of break style of music that he was doing back on his debut, it's beautiful to hear, and I couldn't have been more happier listening to this mixtape. It's actually quite short as well. It's only 38 minutes, but it's lovely. At number 5, I have picked a almost entirely instrumental album, Tourists Every Day, which I can only describe as the soundtrack to a movie about a breakup that hasn't been made yet.
Okay.
It seems that's how I put it, because every song in here just gives such great imagery, that it seems like it's supposed to be made for something that already has been. So
Okay.
you got songs on there like Awake, which is the kind of whole like waking up, kind of going to sleep and kind of trying to wake up, and then that song that follows it, that it flows perfectly into Emily, which seems to be kind of whole dream. The way that I get the imagery from it, it seems to be kind of like remembering an ex while you're sleeping and all the good times, and it's kind of starting to hurt. And then you got songs like Someone Else, Violet on there, the beautiful Apollo. It is one of the best instrumental albums I have heard this decade. And I actually implore everyone to give this one a listen. I think this is Tourist's most consistent release to date, including the album that he put out later this year. But back at the start of the year when I first heard it, it hit me straight up. It's like, this is just beautiful to listen to, and it's been high on my list ever since. For a while, before a lot of the other albums I gave a listen, it seemed like it was going to be my number one for a while, actually. But each one of these other albums have kind of beaten it. And number 4, it goes to the industrial noise rockers Lightning Bolt, putting out one of probably their most melodic albums to date, Sonic Citadel. My God, is this one fun to listen to? Holy shit. I remember I kind of just first heard it just at work. I just put it on. And yeah, I didn't put it out on loud, so I didn't have to bother everyone else. And it can be quite hard to get into this album, seeming as it is quite staticky a bit. And it's on purpose as well. But there is so much into this, and every song is a fucking banger of industrial noise rock. Lightning Bolt, Sonic Citadel. At number
Looking
4.
all these up as you tell me that, because I've not really heard most of these.
Yeah. That's the fun of this. The artwork on this is
I need to listen to more.
The artwork of this is beautiful. It looks like a kid's drawing, but a really talented kid's drawing of a castle. And I actually have the CD, and on the CD there's a kid's drawing of a cyborg. Well, not a cyborg. I think that might just have to be a robot, but it is incredibly fun. You got songs like "Blow to the Head" and "Bouncy House," which have been high on my playlist, and they just are complete hard-hitting kind of dance tracks. You got other songs like "Big Banger" that I've been listening to a bit. Don Henley in the Park, which is probably the oddest one on here. Which it's the only one that I've ever seen that talks about Don Henley in a park.
Occupy is a good song.
Yep. And it's probably also the most accessible one off here, but you don't go for this album for listening to the accessibleness of it. You go into there to just hear some hard-hitting industrial, and it doesn't stop, and it's beautiful. Which brings us out now to number 3. Now, all of these albums could have easily have been number 1 when I was doing this, because they have all been so heavy on my playlist. But in the end, I'm pretty comfortable with how I picked the 3 to 1, so I'll go straight into it. Number 3 is Canadian punks Pup with their album Morbid Stuff, which probably has the darkest lyrics that I've heard this year. Which seems to be a lot of times you get emo acts trying to do all this angsty lyrics, and it ends up being so cringy, and they just don't know what the hell they're doing, or so sad. And then Pup manages to bring their angst to a level that it becomes fun. You have songs about during the whole Bloody Mary, or kind of during the whole pentagram on the floor, kind of trick and trying to summon the devil. I think in the same one. You have songs about just having gruesome ways that people die. And See You at Your Funeral, which has probably one of the more funnest kind of fuck yous about seeing an ex lyrics that you have, where I hope to God I never see you again, or if I do, it's at your funeral, or better yet. Which is just fun as hell.
Sounds actually really cool.
It's really fun. And a lot of it is still kind of serious that he goes into as well. There's no doubt about that. Scorpion Hill, which it seems to be a kind of whole talking about how if he kind of just continues to grow up with his depression and it doesn't go away, how is that going to be effective to everyone around him that he loves? Like, well, that ends with the lyric that is my doubt the darkest one that I've heard this of this year. It's yeah, a picture of my kid. Yeah, he's smiling. It's the first day of school. She said, I found a gun. It was hidden beneath piles of clothes in the room where your son sleeps, and I can't pretend to know how this will end. I don't even know what to fucking think of that. You don't know if he's about to start a school shooting, if he's about to shoot himself, and that's just where it ends. In this kind of all uncertainty and just darkness, and I love it. Number 2, however...
Listening to you describe these, by the way. I love listening to you describe these.
Oh, thank you.
You're so passionate. It's great.
Thank you. I've listened to all these albums a lot this year, which is why I love kind of talking about it. At number 2, a massive return to form for an artist that I actually talked a little bit about on this episode. Number 2 is Local Natives' Violet Street, which is a massive return to form for them. Their last album, Sunlit Youth, didn't quite grab me at all. It seemed a bit all over the place and kind of generic. However, in this one, kind of all banded together, and the chemistry is real. You have songs at the end of this like Tap Dancer, which whilst being really soft, is so emotional. Even the opening track, Vogue, which is probably one of the hardest ones to kind of get your head around the sound of it, which is still so emotional. One of my songs of the year follows straight up for that with When Am I Gonna Lose You, which is when this album really starts to hit in. And it's so danceable, and it's not really dark here listening to these lyrics, but that's not what this album has. This album is really full of emotion. And it doesn't feel feigned in. Now, you do have a couple fun tracks in there as well. Again, Tap Dancer is kind of not supposed to be about emotion. It is kind of just them kind of writing a song. I think they described it as a song they would write and sing around a campfire. And you have songs about, like, Megaton Mile, which is about the apocalypse. But
I've been saying about the apocalypse lately.
Yeah. But that one's great because it actually ends with the sound of the nuke coming in and a whole explosion, and then it kind of just wraps back up and goes back in time, and then has this real experimental, but it flows so nicely into this. It's this real funky track that just really crashes and explodes, and then somehow flows perfectly into this really chill, emotional track, and it's incredible how they've done this, and this one was really high with being number 1 of the year. I think it's their best album to date as well. Same with who I picked for number 1. It's going to be no surprise who I picked for number 1. And we're not going to go too much into number 1 because we've already done that. But
is LSD.
Yeah, LSD is the best album of 2019. Number 1. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards Infest the Rat's Nest. What more to say? I love the fuck out of it. King Gizzard has absolutely dominated my playlist this year with both of their albums. I think they actually are my most played artist of the year. And my top 10 is supposed to be a reflection of what I've listened to this year. And artists like Pup, Local Natives, Lightning Bolt, Tourist, Flume, we're going back up the list and let's stop there. These are all albums that I've listened to incredibly over the year, and they become that much more memorable. And King Gizzard is by far the artist that I think has just perfected 2019. Even if you don't think Infest the Rat's Nest is the best album you ever heard, you also got the massive tours that they've been doing. The other album, Fishing for Fishies, which is not the same quality, but it's still pretty high up there. You know, I got them planning 3-hour shows in America next year, which there will be absolutely no repeats, is what they're promising, between any of those sets.
Okay.
And they're selling out like hotcakes.
Be exciting. I don't know if I'll go. I don't know if it's gonna be anywhere near me, but
I think they're already sold out. Don't think it matters.
the near concert sold out. Couldn't go to that, so this selling out is no surprise.
Yeah. And with that, that is going to be 2019 wrapped up for talking about albums. We have a couple of mini-sodes plans in the next couple of weeks, so we don't actually have any albums to talk about what we're doing next week.
I'm looking forward to 2020 for sure. I'm gonna I really want to dive into 2020 and like get into a lot of the music that's going on and really listen to a lot like you do.
And with that, because I kind of got to go wrap up, I talked a lot about those albums. That is going to be us for this episode. We've still got a couple more minisodes that we're going to be recording in abundance for December, so look out for those.
So 15 will resume in 2020.
I've been Riddleman. You can catch me at Riddleman for Kids at github.io, where I have a YouTube channel. I'll put in a link below. Put it in the description below. Tricks and stuff will also be in the description below. I'm not going to bother describing all their stuff. Dominic, you quickly finish this up.
You can find me writing stuff at tiltedremostudios.com. I write other places sometimes. You can find me on Twitter at DACICHOCKI. You can also follow Dissonant Waves on Twitter as well at Dissonant Waves. Please follow us and look at our tweets.
And that's going to do us. See you next time.
Hey.